I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and for the end of the year, I figured we'd have a look at how Mark Carney has changed Canada over the course of 2025, because that's one of the biggest political stories. And one of the first things to recognize is that his takeover of the Liberal Party has turned it from one that was very focused on progressive ideals and minority rights and individual liberties, and turned it very much into a progressive, conservative, corporate focused party and government. And that's causing a lot of changes and changes to the way that the way that Canada interacts with the world and the way that which government functions for Canadians. One of the ways, for example, was saying that, our values haven't changed, but also saying we no longer have a feminist foreign policy, which is actually kind of important because it demonstrates both the value of actually saying what these values are and in demonstrating what they mean when it comes to how we interact internationally. Similarly, the way they are cutting grants and contributions to women's groups, minority groups, so on in Canada, is also again showing that it's less about the empowering and ensuring that these communities have the resources they need in the face of rising hate and oppression, because that is actually something that is going on, and very much leaving them to fend more for themselves, because Carney is focused more on cutting those aspects of the budget in order to make way to pay for bigger projects. This also leads to some of the questions around whether or not he's understood really the issues that when it comes to things like government capacity in Canada, because his way of deciding we need to build things faster is to go around existing processes, and in doing so standing up new agencies and then appointing his own friends as the heads of these agencies, which starts to invite cronyism. He's also trying to expand programs that second workers from Bay Street firms to work in these organizations, but is also asking those firms to top up their salaries, which is inviting ethical complications or possible corruption. And so these are things that we really need to kind of keep an eye on. As well, Carney has backtracked on a lot of his promises around the environment and is really kind of deciding that in giving Alberta a special deal with the MOU, for example, that he's undermining the existing federal processes and federal negotiated standards that every other province has to live with. So that's also a big question mark, as is the fact that he seems to think that Pathways, the carbon capture project, is the way of the future, even though the amount of carbon it captures is only something to the effect of 12%. But it gives the sense that his idea of how to deal with environmental challenges is very much a conservative one of there will be magical technology in the future that will do this for us rather than doing the hard work now. And again, I think this is something that needs to be pointed out. There are other questions around some of the values in which he's demonstrating, for example, the continued scapegoating of immigration for problems around housing and healthcare, rather than deciding to use his leverage as Prime Minister to hold provinces to account for those failures, is also one of those signs that we really kind of need to keep an eye on, and to really, I think, understand that this is not the same government, even though people like to think that it's more of a continuation, and that these are things that we need to really keep an eye on and start pushing back against in the new year. Because we are at a very crucial moment in our history, and I think it would be a real shame if we let the values that we as Canadians believe in start to slide because the going gets tough. So these are things that I think Canadians need to remind Mark Carney of, and particularly those who continue to be beguiled by the mystique that he seems to put off, or the sense that he's so accomplished in business that he knows what he's doing, even though that may not necessarily be the case. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.